Let me pose this question to everyone this morning. Can you imagine being responsible for the delivery of 15 million packages every day? As president of UPS operations, or U.S. operations for UPS, Mr. Gray has one of the company's most demanding and challenging jobs. UPS moves the equivalent of 6% of United States GDP through its network. There are few executives who oversee an operation as large as the one that Mr. Gray is responsible for. And with 345,000 employees, there may not be an executive with more people reporting either directly or indirectly to him or her than there are to Myron. The scope of his responsibilities make him an authority on one of the most pressing business challenges of our time, leadership, which is the subject he will speak about today. Myron began his career with UPS in 1978 as a part-time package handler in the Tennessee district while attending college. And he remarked to me in the back there a minute ago that you had to start out driving a truck back then. And I'm not sure if that's still the case today, but certainly there's no better way to learn the business from the ground up, so to speak. He's since completed advanced management programs at INSEAD in France and at the Yale School of Business. Throughout his career at UPS, Myron has held various positions of increasing responsibility in industrial engineering, human resources, business development, and operations. Prior to his current role, he served as president of the Americas region, covering Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. He also presided over programs to expand the company's logistics services, upgrade the technology in UPS operations, and improve the delivery fleet's fuel efficiency. Myron is a member of the UPS Management Committee, the group of senior executives that are responsible for the strategic direction of the company that last year had a measly $58 billion in revenues. He also serves on the Board of Governors, the National Board of Governors, and as a Southeast Region trustee for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And he sits on the boards of the Atlanta Police Foundation, the National Urban League, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. But more importantly, and perhaps most importantly, he confided to me that despite the fact that he lives in Atlanta, today he is a Saints fan. Just today. So before we welcome Mr. Gray to the stage, let's enjoy this video that his team has put together for us. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming today's executive speaker, Mr. Myron Gray.
So as you would think, this is a very big handkerchief that I have in my hand. I kind of outsmarted myself. Last night when we arrived, I thought about going out for a walk and said maybe it's a little bit too hot, but I've since learned that there's even more humid here in the morning than it is in the afternoon, so perhaps I'll cool off. Thank you for turning the air up. It is great to be here with you today, and thanks, Eddie, for such a opening there. You know, one of your favorite sons, your favorite adopted sons, John Goodman once said, there's an incomplete part of your chromosomes that get healed the moment that you touch foot in New Orleans. He also says some of us just belong here, whether you were born here or not. There was a time when that statement would have been made about the food, the music, perhaps the architecture, or maybe the fragrance bubbling from some of your gumbo. And all those things have in the past made this such an amazing city. But today, in a city like this, one who is still going through a unique transformation, belonging takes on a whole new meaning. To belong here is to feel a kinship to a city that's remaking itself. And in that remaking and in that reimagining, we see exactly what real leadership is all about. You know, the video asked the question, who will make a difference? 10 years ago, Hurricane Katrina imposed an urgency to that question that very few cities have ever known. But the answer came from every corner of this city and this state. You could include government, large businesses, small ones, and all of the unique agencies, and the men and women from this unique city that knew exactly what John Goodman was talking about. It's that kind of leadership that I want to talk to you about today. So to start, let's consider this upcoming historical milestone that you're about to encounter. As we approach the 10-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, a lot of attention will be paid to the darkest hours of that experience. I hope the people conducting that examination don't overlook a success story. The one that began to unfold when the winds died and as the storm waters receded. If the media and others will train their cameras and perspectives in that direction, the world will get a glimpse of the spirit and resilience you folks see on a daily basis. Christian Saunier of the New Orleans Convention and Visitors Bureau captures that spirit in this quote. "I lost everything," he said, "but I have zero regrets, because we're not just rebuilding what was lost, we're way past that. We're building a city that we never thought we could have. That unimagined city is taking shape in education, business investment, tourism, and most important, in an influx of energy and talent. But how does a city with such deep cultural roots come back so strong on so many fronts and from so much devastation? The answer, obvious to anyone who spends time here, is with strong leadership. I think the comeback actually started and the leaders began to emerge while the storm still held you in its massive grip. We've all heard stories of sacrifice and heroism that come from those days. And UPS, in our own small way, perhaps we were one of those stories. We have an individual whose name is Gerald Barnes, who is from here, who now is a part of the UPS Foundation in Atlanta, though he's a New Orleans native, was here within days of the storm. And he slept on an air mattress for 6 months while he began to make his connections work for UPS. Somehow, some way, he was able to convince the authorities to let our tractors and trailers exit I-10. And we thank those who helped us enjoy that privilege. So within days, our operations were back in business and we were making deliveries, helping your city get back on its feet. And I'm sure, as you know, there are hundreds of other stories just like that. Maybe some of you here in the room today are central characters in that story as well. But the big story of New Orleans' return is a story of selfless collaboration. Self-serving agendas were tossed aside in pursuit of something grander, something that I'm sure was hard to envision amid such devastation. Now, I'm also not naive. I know as well as you do that there's still a lot of work that needs to happen. There's that haunting question. Is this city safe from another Katrina? We also know that that question has many facets. It has to do with engineering, economics, and it also has to do with politics. There's also the deeply troubling question for people who were hurt most by the storm, the poor, the working people, the elderly, most of them African Americans. They all want to know will the rebirth of this city include them. It's been reported that as many as 100,000 fewer African Americans live here now as opposed to before the storm. For those people, housing and income levels stand in stark contrast to others. So as you would imagine, this is a story that's still missing an ending. The chapters will come, but they also entail much more work. You know, from an early age, I've seen what hard work looks like. My dad was a steel worker, and my mom was an educator from Memphis, Tennessee. I worked summers on my grandparents' farm, and quite frankly, that's where I learned that if you didn't milk the cow, you didn't have fresh milk. If you were afraid to work in the garden, then you didn't have vegetables. So in other words, I learned how to fend for myself, and no one was going to give you anything. And I think the city of New Orleans understands that. As you heard in the opening, I've also driven the brown package cars. I've worked long hours in many of the operations across this country. You know, UPS is a lot like the armed services. You don't get a chance to stay in one place for a long time. You move a lot. So you see a lot of things. You meet a lot of people, and you enjoy a lot of different cultural backgrounds. And that's what you have here in New Orleans. You're a melting pot. But multiply those experiences that I've had a few hundred times, and that's what I imagine that you went through in this city, a lot of hard work to bring it back to where it is today. Your world and my world come together in the truth of an old saying, and it says, the problem with the future is that it comes at us too fast, and most of the time in the wrong order. New Orleans is a unique place. I like to think that UPS is a unique company. But we're both creatures of context. We're both a part of powerful steering currents guiding a century that bears little resemblance to the one we turned the page on just 15 years ago. Those currents flow through both incredible opportunity and historic challenge. The rise of a global middle class. Urbanization that says that by 2020, we'll see 1 of 6 people living in cities. So we're seeing a reversal. There'll be pressure on already stressed resources, shifting centers of economic power, and certainly disruptive technology. I could go on, but no matter where we look, the point is the same. Just like New Orleans, in this age of conflicting forces, the winners will be those who can see over the horizon and around the corners to the next opportunity. Just like New Orleans, they will have the flexibility to adapt when they inevitably encounter the unexpected. UPS, as noted earlier, is a company that moves over 6% of the US GDP and 2% of the global GDP on a daily basis. And we work in over 200 countries and territories. We honestly have a big and urgent interest in how these historic forces are combining to change the customers, consumers, and the communities that we serve. When we look at the forces remaking the world and the world's supply chains, our perspective is at ground level. We're in the warehouses, on the trucks, the planes, the trains, and most importantly, you've allowed us to be in your planning sessions, working the levers of technology. We spend hundreds of hours talking with customers to determine what to do next. When I stand back from it all, I see three main drivers of the future. One is the rise of a new economy. Two is the rise of a new era of transforming technology. And then the third is the rise of a new era of individual power and expectation. Let's take them one at a time. The rise of a new economy is exactly what is happening right outside this building. California has Silicon Valley. You've got Bayou Valley. It's tech with a side of jambalaya. Technologists are flocking here because your city is affordable. They are attracted to the impressive academic presence that you have here. And of course, technology is attracting more technology. And city leaders are doing the right things to attract them and help them grow. And that's leadership. But there is an even more fundamental reason why smart, creative people are building businesses here. It's because they can. We're moving under full power into what is being called the entrepreneurial economy. It's different from yesterday's organizational economy where big opportunity only happened as a function of scale. Today, roadblocks to global competition are being replaced by on-ramps available to the best competitors. This new economy kicks the open doors of global opportunity to small and medium-sized enterprises. SMEs are the GDP and jobs-driving engine of most economies, and they're helping transform this city, especially as the influence of some established business sectors wane. You know, there's an old saying about competition. It says if you can't run with the big dogs and the weeds, then you need to stay on the porch. And when we look to the future, we want to help SMEs get off that porch so they can run anywhere that business takes them. That takes us directly to steering current number 2. It's technology. You know, I won't waste time telling people with smartphones buzzing in their pockets about transforming power of digital. We're all extensions of devices that have revolutionized the human connection and interaction. But here's the news. Digital advances to this date are just a warm-up for what's about to occur. The next revolution will occur when all our devices become one. That transformation already has a name. It's called the Internet of Things. As a society, we love to talk about disruptive technologies. But this will be disruption on a scale that none of us has ever imagined. Think about all the agents of change today. You would include robotics, 3D printing, the cloud, biogenetics, and last but not least, nanotechnology. Now think of all that coming together in a vast, intelligent network, crossing borders, talking, even thinking as one. By 2020, estimates put the number of devices connected to the internet at 40 to 50 billion. The Internet of Things will open up a huge opportunity for the very small businesses. Instead of building their own supply chains, they'll plug into them. And that changes all the possibilities. But possibility is still running out front of policy. You're a group with a major interest in trade. You know that we're at a critical point in some agreements that can change the world. As you know, the Senate recently approved legislation giving President Obama authority to negotiate major trade agreements with Asia and Europe. last month, he actually signed the Trade Promotion Authority, or TPA, into law. TPA actually sets the stage for approval for the Transatlantic Pacific Partnership, or TPP, which will broaden cooperation on Pacific trade and boost U.S. influence on Asian markets. Well, as you also well know, last week, the TPP hit a speed bump in Hawaii, where several countries, including the U.S., dug their heels in on points of national interest. We're still hopeful. UPS is still hopeful that this deal gets done before this election year. We know that not a lot will occur if it doesn't get done this year. Nowhere does the technology current run deeper than in retail and healthcare, two business segments that stir your local economy. There was a time when conventional wisdom said that online shopping was going to be the death knell of in-store shopping. But when it comes to today's consumers, precious little is conventional. We, UPS, obviously have a keen interest in how goods get from retailers to consumers. And it's often the case, we're also concerned about how it gets back to the retailer, reverse logistics. We recently completed a huge consumer study, what we call the UPS Pulse of the Online Shopper. We found that while retail is dramatically changing, it's not a case of one ecosystem replacing another. We're not predicting the final days of shopping centers or malls. What we see instead is a blending of consumer preferences that come together in what we call flex shoppers. Flex shoppers easily cross channels. From stores to the web and back again, they want it all. A sizable percentage of the shoppers who completed the survey said that delivery and returns were a major part of their purchase experience. Parts of that experience don't make them very happy. So we're trying to do something about that. UPS My Choice and the UPS Access Point Network work together to help online shoppers and global retailers conduct business conveniently and on their own terms. UPS My Choice members receive advanced delivery notifications that let them know when their package is coming and when it's scheduled for delivery. And using your smartphone app, they can reroute packages to another address or reschedule deliveries for a future date. When our drivers are unable to complete a delivery, you can use that smartphone to tell us where you would like it left. Would you like it left at a neighbor's house? Would you like it left at an access point, which is normally a convenience store or a cleaner's? By year's end, we expect to have over 8,000 UPS access points in play. For years, UPS was like a lot of companies. We wanted all the control. Now with services like this, we're putting the controls into our consumers' and customers' hands. Technology is also driving a transformation in healthcare. More than 10 years ago, we looked at 76 million baby boomers streaming into their high care years. We looked at the amazing amount of new therapies, and we looked at the daunting economics that followed along with it, and we said that's an industry that we need to be in. So in the last several years, we've invested more than $100 million in healthcare facilities. Technologies and talent to create the efficiencies and supply chains today's healthcare customers require. It's that same foresight that's given rise to your mid-city hospital complex, the biotech corridor, and all the care and research investments that are transforming New Orleans today into a medical hub. The third steering current is the power of the individual, which now extends from the consumers we're helping our customers satisfied to the people we depend on to make that satisfaction possible. Managing those people in a time of individual expression is one of our biggest leadership challenges. It'll also be yours. One of my most useful lessons in understanding that came very early in my career. I was a manager in UPS's Rocky Mountain district. So Rocky Mountain was comprised of Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. And for the past 25 years before I got there, it was a destination-driven delivery district. So I sought to turn it around by asking for a real sales pro to come in and help this turn around. So I call my boss. I tell him all the attributes of what I'm looking for. And he says, you know, I know what you're thinking about, and I know why you want someone with those characteristics. But that's not what I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you a young guy that I've been holding back to the side that I think is a real go-getter and has a bright future. So he tells me, well, just talk to him. If you don't like him, just put him back on the plane and send him back. So in my head, before he even lands, I'm going to spend about 10 seconds with this kid, and I'm going to put him on a plane and send him home. So when he lands, he gets off the plane, and back then you could still walk to the actual gate and meet this person. I'm sitting at the gate. He gets off the plane. I recognize him. Blue suit, shiny shoes, milk still coming out of the corner of his mouth. He's so young. So I began to paint what I thought was the most dreadful picture ever that I could make this kid think about, because I really wanted to scare him so he wouldn't take the job. And after a while, he looks at me deadpan, and he says, sir, look, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me afraid so I won't stay. But you need to understand, this is my job. I'm not getting on a plane. I know what the odds are up against you, and I want to stay here and help you get it done. So I said, let's go get your bag. So as it turns out, it's probably the best hire I've ever made. And a great lesson came along with it. Get outside of your comfort zone. Be open to new experiences, different cultures, and different people. That young man totally changed our ability to pursue customers outside our area of expertise. We, without question, wouldn't have been able to make the same breakthrough if I had hired someone who was going to do the same things that we had always done. I think about that every time when I meet someone who, in my opinion, is not quite right for the job. Leveraging the power of individuals by treating them that way can transition well-established older companies like ours and yours. So admittedly, our heritage is old school. We were founded by a teenager in 1907 in Seattle, Washington by the name of Jim Casey. Our culture has always valued people, and it's a part of Jim's legacy. But we're also an engineering company. Some would even go as far as to call UPS a bunch of gearheads. We make things work. We run tight schedules. We like solving problems. We're consumed by the need for greater efficiency. That's why our drivers rely on sophisticated algorithms to run their routes, and why we tell them to avoid left-hand turns like it's the plague. It's not just what we do, it's actually who we are. But we have to remember today that jobs are done by very different people who have a different relationship to work than the ones that I had when I started my career some 37 years ago. So we're learning to think differently about how to attract, keep, and develop this new talent. Thinking differently means exploring flexible work schedules, beefing up our diversity and inclusion efforts, and expanding leadership development. The degree of difficulty goes up when you consider that for the first time, we actually have 3 generations working under one roof. The baby boomers, the Gen Xers, and the millennials all at once. Of those 3, you would agree that the millennials are getting the most attention. They are the social equivalent of disruptive technology. But they're also the very same people that are flocking to New Orleans, by the way, who are helping to change the face of this city and who are also breathing new life into this city. Forbes ranks New Orleans tops in the nation for growth of college graduates. Congratulations. You're also becoming a mecca for entrepreneurs. According to the latest Realty Track study, since 2007, the number of 20-somethings here grew by 71%. They now make up more than 30% of this city's population, making NOLA the 3rd most popular destination for their age group. So what kind of people are you getting? We all know the book on millennials, and if you believe the book, they're all thin-skinned, shielded from failure by their parents, entitled, picky, and have an inflated sense of importance. There are no millennials in the room, are there? You know, I see some of that, but what I see more is confidence and teamwork out of that group. I see people who are motivated not by the size of their office and title, but by the meaning that they find in what they do. You know, people don't see themselves as human resources. They see themselves as human beings, and they want tangible, consistent proof that we see them the same way as well. You know, my grandmother was a very poor woman, but every person that she came in contact, regardless of their race or origin, called her Mrs. Gray. And I asked her, well, how do you get that done? And she just looked me squarely in the eye and said, in order to get respect, you have to give it first. That lesson was taught to me very early on in one of the assignments that I had as well. I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was on vacation. I had short pants on and I was on a golf course. And at the time, the executive called me and he said, I need to see you. So I said, sir, you do realize I'm on vacation? And he says, yeah, I know, but I need to see you. I have on short pants, I'm hot, I'm sweaty. I didn't ask you all that, just come see me. So he says, I want you to go to Oakland, California, and I want you to take an assignment. But before you go, I want you to know why you're being asked to go. Okay. He says that the person that you're replacing says that the employee shot at him on the way to work. He has a bullet hole in his windshield and one in his car seat. So I'm thinking, you just don't care about me, huh? So I get there, I go through the interview, and I accept the job, and they tell me you need to make sure that you park your car by the guardhouse every day because they're known to scratch up your cars. Make sure that you look out of your rearview mirror often on your way home. So I'm thinking this is going to be tough. So I arrived for work on my first official day. I moved into my home, and I parked my car as far away from the guard shack as I can, because I wanted to send a message that I don't really care about the car. I care about the individuals here. And you can't scare me. I'm going to leave when the job is done. So one of the first things I did was meet with the union steward, and I said, okay, tell me what's wrong and why we have these issues. And quite frankly, one of the biggest issues was they felt like they weren't getting any respect from management. They could produce records that showed that for years they were improperly paid, and they just wanted someone to show them respect. So giving respect, in turn, earned me respect. And I only wanted 3 things in return. I wanted them to show up on time, work the full shift, and do their best. So in 1993, UPS began to accept packages for the first time that were over 100 pounds, and we had a nationwide strike. I got a call from my corporate offices, and the question was, how many people do we need to send you? And I said, I don't need anybody. So he said it again. No, you don't understand. How many people do you need so we can get you back up on your feet and running? I said, I don't need anybody. My people are working. They had gone in the parking lot early in the morning. They'd met with the Secretary Treasurer, and he told them not to come in that day. I walked in the parking lot and I said, can you give me a minute to talk to my people? So I asked him, have I done everything that you asked me? Yes. Have I straightened out your paychecks? Yes. Have I worked with you? Yes. So I said, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to walk back in the building, and I expect you to walk in behind me. And I looked at the Secretary of Treasury and I said, oh, by the way, you can come with them too. And they did. And it was all because of treating people with dignity and respect. It's just treating people how well we all want to be treated. So the words have to match the music, but people want more. They want clear expectations. They want you to be honest with them. They want consistency, and they want it in good times and bad. This also may explain the recent rise of Donald Trump among the Republican presidential candidates. Whether you like him or not, you have to give him credit. He is always consistent. People in the workplace also want you to admit your mistakes, and they want the opportunity to make their own mistakes, and they want the opportunity to learn from them. The thing is, none of that is an unreasonable list. It's a doable list, and today, based on the makeup of people that we have, it's a critical list. It's not soft leadership, it's the leadership that will work for the new era that we're in. So I'm going to close with one more thought about leadership. It's one that infuses all the rest. Leaders are dealers in optimism. Nobody knows that better than the leaders here in New Orleans. There weren't a lot of optimists to be found on the streets in the early days after Katrina, but you gave people reasons to believe, and then more reasons. You did what the very best leaders have always done. You've encouraged a diverse population of people and agendas to look to the future, to see possibilities, to consider the challenges and say, we can do this. And you've done it. So congratulations to all the leaders who've had a hand in this. And congratulations and Godspeed to the ones of you who had the courage to know that more work certainly needs to be done. So all the best to this great city, one with an amazing future, one who will continue to teach the rest of the world what leaders do. Thank you. And if I didn't run over, maybe there's a question.
We have a few minutes, please.
Okay.
If anyone has any questions for Mr. Gray, Eliza's got a microphone that we can share with you.
Please be recognized. I have a question. As we've all heard in the news for several years, Amazon has had in the works the development of drones and possibly getting close to releasing that for deliveries. How does UPS feel about that, and is UPS going to follow in the same steps?
That's a good question, and one that I'm reminded of. I sat down with a young lady who had me on CNBC, and we were supposed to talk about why UPS chose to keep its headquarters in Georgia. And Georgia has been noted as the #1 place to do business in the U.S. for quite some time. But she led with a question of, what do you think about drones? And I'm sitting there with a straight face, trying not to give myself away, but thinking, what's this got to do with the interview? But that's a great question. So we are experimenting with drones, admittedly. However, you make money in the transportation delivery business based on density. So let me explain it this way. We make money because a UPS driver can park his car at the corner of a street and make 15 deliveries from one parked car position. So you need density and scale to make money in transportation. Amazon and Jeff Bezos, I thought, did a very clever expose by utilizing 60 Minutes to talk about drones, to bring attraction to the company. Because at that time, they wanted to sign up more members. Now, I think it will be quite some time before the FAA grants authority for any company to use drones on a wide-scale basis to deliver packages. Right now, the rules say that you have to keep the drone within line of sight, and it has to be an FAA-qualified operator in order to utilize a drone. So with Amazon's multifaceted facilities that they have around the country, you've got to put an enormous amount of drones in the air at the same time to utilize this as a delivery vehicle. I am, however, as a U.S. citizen, very cautious about pushing too far and too fast at the same time. We joked about being a Saints fan earlier, but imagine if an LSU football game were being played and someone used a drone to drop a bomb in the middle of the game. And so there has to be rules to differentiate and determine what's being used as a drone for recreational or business use as opposed to a threat to deliver a device for harm. So I think we should be very careful about utilizing technology in some senses, and I think it's going to take a while before we figure all that out. Sure.
Yes, with your story tenure within the company, could you divulge any shifting of the major philosophy of UPS? The basic philosophy, has it changed in your tenure?
Oh, absolutely. I encountered a question before we started earlier. And by the way, I've been around, I always make sure I tell this lie. I've been around UPS for 37 years, and I always tell everybody I started when I was 2. But yes, there were probably 65,000 employees at UPS when I started. Now there's over 345,000, and everything was done through a manual process. And today we're working extremely hard to embrace technology, to utilize in our systems to create greater efficiencies, to make it an easier workplace to attract these new millennials that I talked about, because they don't want to do manual labor. They want to utilize technology. It's what they embrace. I think that's the single most biggest change that we've seen. The second is the way that we treat our customers. When there was only UPS and the post office, and this admittedly how it was. It's not a good story, but it's the truth. When there was only UPS and the post office, you kind of told people when you wanted their business and when you didn't. But as I alluded to when I was talking about healthcare and the transformation that's taking place in it, we literally sit with hundreds of customers every day trying to get a deeper understanding of what it is that they're trying to do, so to determine which direction that we go in. So we're a much more kindler, gentler company than what we've been in the past. It's worked for us, and I think that our leadership has changed over that period of time. When you look at UPS today, we're a microcosm of the communities that we serve. When you look at the highest levels of the organization, you see people who look like me. When I started with UPS, that didn't exist. Our chief legal counsel and senior vice president of human resources, who's also over labor and public affairs, looks like me. You never would have seen that in the company that I started with. So there's just been an enormous amount of change. At that time, outside of our U.S. boundaries, we only did business in Canada and Germany. Today, we do business in over 220 countries and territories. So we've become much more of a global company. At the time, we weren't even in the air business. Today, I'm president of our UPS Airlines, and we own 230 of our own aircraft and lease another 375. So there's just been an immense amount of change. There was another question back here.
I enjoyed the story about your grandmother and your experience in Oakland. But my question is about UPS is known for its relentless pursuit of excellence and efficiency. You mentioned it a little bit. So I'm wondering, A, do you happen to know the genesis of that? And B, how is it that UPS has been successful in maintaining that as a priority in their organization over the span of existence?
Well, when you're in the delivery business, you very quickly understand that in order to make a profit, it requires that you get to a lot of different locations very fast. It requires that you understand the needs of your constituency, which means that every customer who is served wants their packages delivered when they want them delivered, because they're setting their schedules inbound for their own businesses based off the time that you want to get it there. It also means that in the afternoons, because we're so heavily involved in healthcare, for an example, you have to run a very tight schedule because it's an air, ground, use of the railroad, spoke and hub system. So everything has to run based on time. And those networks have to all merge together every day, synchronize in order to make it work. That's why we have part-time operations. So when the delivery driver, for example, gets back in the afternoon, we start our local hub operations around 5 p.m. and at 8 or 8:30, everything has to be done because you have a time schedule that you have to hit. Those feeder trucks need to hit the next delivery location on time in order to set the thing back in motion for the next day. The planes here in New Orleans have to take off no later than 10 o'clock at night because they have to turn Louisville in order to leave Louisville by 2:30 in the morning, because some of those planes are going to the rest of the world. They're going to the West Coast. They have to make it to the West Coast by 6 a.m. to get the process back around again. So everything is time definite at UPS. Some of it because of our system, most of it because of customer needs. So the other part of your question was, how long has it been that way? I can tell you that we put our first moving belt in action back in 1915, I say. So it's been an innate part of our DNA for a very long time. And as we speak, we have a technology center in Doraville, Georgia, that's working on the next iteration of technology that'll help us go even faster, be more efficient. You see it in the vehicles that we acquire today. We have the most alternate fuel vehicles of any fleet of any organization in the United States today. So we're always trying to get better, cut back, be more climate friendly, save more money in everything that we do. One more?
We have time for one more.
One more.
Just move this young man up here, please.
Good morning. Thank you for
Good
your
morning.
remarks. My name is Jason Burns. I own a company, I know you know we're with here, QCS Logistics. We do a lot of same-day customized deliveries here in the southern part of Louisiana. My question is kind of in response to what you just said, and thinking about the shift of consumer behavior. And you're talking about retail, you mentioned medical. We do a lot of medical business. And the need for speed, so to speak. So there's been a lot of studies and reports that consumers now want things faster. My question is, one, from a UPS standpoint, what's the take on that assessment? Is there a true need for speed? Are consumers really interested in buying project, not just because of delivery, but they can get it delivered faster, and what's UPS response to that? Especially in light of, as you mentioned, UPS's model right now is very structured on time to get the density you want, and there's somewhat of a conflict between speed and to aggregate volume and the density. And I guess I have 3 questions, and then depending on how you answer that question, does UPS, do you consider UPS ever outsourcing some of that segment if you see an interest in going for the speed, for the same-day logistics customer base?
Okay, earlier in my talk, I referenced a survey that we conducted called the UPS Online Pulse for Shoppers. And what we find is customers have a need less of same-day delivery, but they want next-day morning delivery. And so back up for a second. Most of us are buying via smartphones, but it normally doesn't occur during the day because most of us are working. Most online purchases occur between 6 p.m. and 12 p.m. at night. Today, for most retailers who offer same day, or for online grocery shoppers who want them delivered the same day, you have to get the order in by 12 or 1 p.m. So you don't have the density as a courier to make money, because you may be only delivering 3 stops, and you're not going to make any money delivering 3 stops to do that. As a matter of fact, I read recently that eBay, for an example, was shutting down its same-day service because they didn't have the number of customers wanting that service as they've seen. So what we see more today is retailers want to allow their customers to shop online up to midnight, and then they want to drop ship into one of our sort centers and have it delivered the next day. So we see that more than anything else. However, to answer the second part of your question, we are, without getting myself in trouble, experimenting in certain cities to see how we can utilize crowdsourcing or courier services to make same-day deliveries for customers who may need same day. We don't see the pickup yet as a result of that. But much unlike the old stodgy company that we used to be, we're open to everything today. And you mentioned your partner, by the way, for the rest of you in the room. Warmoth and I used to work together for quite a long time, so we have a rich history together. So you're working with a great partner. So thank you very much, and I'll hang around for a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray, for your remarks and for coming here today to share your experiences and expertise with us. I think all of us in the room remember how excited you were when you first saw those UPS trucks after Katrina, and I really enjoyed reminiscing as I was listening to the story about you working with your folks here in New Orleans after the storm. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Again, we want to thank all of our sponsors, our board of directors, our World Trade Center team, and everyone who makes this series possible, and for their commitment to our organization's programs. And to you all who are in attendance today, please join me in giving Mr. Gray one final round of applause. Thank you.